My name is Vaishali, and this is the Care Jenna podcast. Here I am today with Madhyama, who is a vice president of a global investment banking company.
Thanks, Vaishali. Thanks a lot for having me. I hope I will be able to add some value to this great podcast that you have ongoing.
Thank you. My first question is, how did your experience with the Indian Civil Services exam shape your approach to career challenges and resilience?
Yeah, so for your global audiences who may not be that familiar, maybe I'll just start with a brief description of what UPSC civil service exams in India are all about. Um, they are famed to be among the toughest exams in the whole world. And that's primarily a function of two things. One is because it's extremely rigorous in terms of the time that it takes. So the exam itself spans over a year. It has three stages. There's an MCQ based prelim stage, then there's a detailed essay type exam, which has a total of 9 papers that you need to take, followed by an interview. And each of these stages are spread across the duration of a year. So it takes you 1 year to just take the exam. On top of it, like I mentioned, the second stage, which is called the main stage, has got 9 different papers and it tests you on every subject under the sun. So, whether it be world history, world geography, Indian geography, science and technology, economics, political science, sociology, and then ethics, philosophy, then you have to choose a specialization, which is called an optional. So, whichever subject that is, you will have to do a deep dive into that subject, languages, so on and so forth. So, it's really expansive. Current affairs, government policy, you name it. And India is such a wide and diverse country that there's a lot to go through. So, the duration and pattern of the exam is very rigorous. And then to top it off, about 500,000 to 1 million people take the exam every year, but of that, only about 800, 900 are selected. And even among those 800, 900, they're actually vying for the top 100, 150 spots or so, which is where you get to become the IAS or IPS officers in the country. So it's really competitive and very, very rigorous. Um, but people like me and many others aspire towards it because it has the potential for you to create tremendous impact at a very, very young age. So if you clear that exam, then you get to run a district and in future create policies for the government, serve the people at the grassroots level and create impact as you can never create. It's also extremely challenging because the posting or the priorities as an IAS officer might change every few years. So it's not like you would be extremely monotonous. You would always have new challenges to look forth. So, in a nutshell, that is why it is quite rigorous as an exam. Speaking about my own journey, I tried to take this exam right after my engineering as a pretty naive 22-year-old. And I thought that if I did not take the risk at this age, I may not have the courage to take the risk at any other age. So let me go for it now. And I went into it with some optimism, but cautious optimism, knowing full well that it is quite challenging. It may not materialize. Um, and credit to my parents who were fully supportive of my decision. I had a pretty good job offer lined up, but I chose to not take that up and instead pursue this. And my parents were completely supportive. They cautioned me that it may be a very challenging path ahead, but they were 100% behind me. Um, so then 1 year into the exam, it took me a year to prepare for the exam and then another year to take the exam. I didn't have very high expectations. I was seeing as I went, but it turned out that I was able to clear the prelims and main stage in my first attempt, and I reached the interview stage, which is like of the initial 500,000 people, now you're left with only about 3,000 people from which the eventual list will be created. Um, but then I eventually did not make the list and I missed it by about 4 marks or so, which was 10 years ago to this date. So I don't realize how long it's been, but it still feels really fresh. So eventually, I missed the list in my first attempt. Now, given the nature of this exam, a candidate has multiple attempts in which we can retake the exam. But like I said, every cycle takes another year. So I thought this was a first attempt and I did pretty well. I only missed it by a few marks. So let me try again. But then next year I missed another stage by maybe 3 marks. I took again and I missed some other stage by, if I'm not wrong, 0.25 marks. Uh, and it at some point became like an addiction to just clear the exam because I thought I had to prove myself. But it never happened for me. Unfortunately, it never happened for me. Um, so that was my journey, and there's a lot to unpack there. But basically, before I realized, 4 years of my life had passed, and I had nothing to show for it, and I had lost a lot of confidence in myself, and I thought that I really um, had no prospects in terms of a good career left, even though when I started off, I thought I was a pretty bright student and had a good career ahead of me. So this journey was like seeing the highest highs and then the lowest lows, because the moment I got that interview call, everyone in the family and around me became quite excited, and it felt like I'm on the verge of getting something, and then suddenly you came crashing down and you have to repeat everything. So it was a pretty wild roller coaster. There's a lot to unpack there, but I think your next question might anyway answer that. So I'll take a pause over there.
Yeah, actually, I had a follow-up question. What made you choose civil services after doing engineering?
That's a very interesting question. So I would say, at least when we were younger, we did not have the kind of clarity that you guys, today's generation, have right now. At that point, if you were a bright student, then you had a few options. Um, and among them, engineering was one of the options which felt like the right thing to do. And I genuinely quite enjoyed physics, specifically mechanical part of physics, so I chose mechanical engineering, and I still found it really engaging, interesting. However, I wasn't sure if I never thought about it if that's really what I wanted to do for all my life. But it's quite interesting. Our uncle, who is my father's older brother, the second brother in my father's list of siblings, I call him Kaku. He's no more, but many years ago when I had done some good result, I don't remember, but I had gotten some good result and I had gone to meet him, and he blessed me, gave me blessings and everything, and he said, it's all good, you should study what you want to, etc. But remember that real impact in society can only be created through IAS. If you become an IAS officer, you can create amazing change in the country and actually do something. Everything else is just another job, but this is something else. And somehow those words remained in my mind, edged forever, and created some impact which used to come back to me every few months or periodically. So, through my engineering, somewhere through my engineering, I felt like this is quite interesting and everything, but maybe I should try for the civil services. And I didn't really know all about the exam in detail, but then I tried to find out a little bit more about it, and I thought that maybe these are things I can do and I would be good at it. So somewhere down the line, I thought that I should probably give it a shot, but I had never imagined that it would take away so many years of my life and a big chunk of my career. Uh, but yeah, Kaku's words were, I think, one of the main things which left a lasting impact on me, and everything else. Then, of course, it is a very glamorous job. Glamorous is not the right word. It's supposed to be a job of service, and that was the main motivation. But I can't deny the fact that with that sense of service, your entire family gets a kind of social validation which no other job in India can provide. And I really wanted to give my family that kind of social validation. So that was also a very important part of the decision.
Yeah, that sounds wonderful. Um, So I guess on to my next question. What key lessons did you learn from your transition?
Yeah, so there's actually, again, a few things that I would need to talk about. So, like I mentioned, 4 years into the cycle, I realized that I had no job, I had a career break, and things weren't looking good. And I had lost a lot of confidence in myself. I really did not feel very optimistic. I had probably some um, lack of confidence along with maybe a depressive episode going on. I wasn't ever diagnosed for it, but I really did not feel the energy within me to wake up and do something, try something, etc. So it was a pretty bad phase. Um, in the meanwhile, just to have a job, there was another exam in the Indian banking sector that I had taken and cleared, through which I got into retail banking in India. So I got that job. I was glad and grateful for that job. But when I joined it, I really hated it. I did not think that this is what I would do for the rest of my life. I didn't feel very good about the kind of impact I was creating, and the work culture seemed quite toxic to me. The learning opportunities were really bleak. So I was really unhappy. And I had no way out. It was at that point that my mom said that enough is enough. You're miserable over here and you need to do something else, snap out of it, and just do an MBA. And I said that MBA, at least in India, you can't do an MBA after a 4 year career gap. The exam itself, which is called CAT, Common Aptitude Test, is another very challenging exam, which for which I haven't prepared ever. So first of all, I wouldn't qualify that exam, and even if I did, they would never accept me because I have a 4 year career gap. She said, "Nothing doing, you try. I know you'll clear it." Um, I refused, but my sister filled up the application form for me and said, "It's okay, don't study, don't prepare, just take the exam." Um, and then I thought about it, and because they had pushed me so much and my sister had put in the effort to actually fill up the form for me, I thought, okay, maybe let me just take the exam just to shut them up, maybe. And interestingly, like I told you, I was working at a retail bank in India, and this is back in 2016, where CAT usually happens in November. And if you were reading global newspapers back then, you would have known that on 8th November 2016, the PM of India announced demonetization in India, which meant that 85% of the currency in India was declared illegal, which meant that everyone had to return all the cash that they carried with them to the banks and then get the new currency from the bank to transact or undertake any business at all. And because I was working in a bank, that meant that there were like thousands of people lined up outside bank branches in the chilly, cold winters and just really craving for the banks to open so that they can withdraw some of their hard-earned money to take care of somebody who wasn't well or to, execute a wedding that had been planned for years. So it was a very intense time. And in the middle of all that, I had to also then take CAT for, so there was absolutely no way that I could have prepared or done anything for it. So I really wasn't giving it much chance. In fact, there were a few weekends, consecutive weekends, that people who were working in banking had to work. And the Sunday that my CAT was to happen was the first Sunday I had gotten in a long time. And I said, I'm not going to take that exam. I haven't prepared. There's no way I'm going to clear it. This is the first holiday I have. I will rest. But my mother, my sister, they really convinced me, cajoled me. Somehow I went, and I was really casual about it. I wasn't very serious. I wasn't keeping time. I was just having a good time. Okay, fine. Some math questions, let me solve them. So I took my time. And it so happened that I got a decent percentile. Like it wasn't amazing or something, but it was good enough. And I somehow got a call from one of the leading business schools in India, which is Indian Institute of Management, Kozhikode. And even for that, and then you have to take an interview for that as well. And even there, I wasn't very serious because I wasn't convinced if that's what I wanted to do in my life. But somehow I cleared that too and landed up at a business school doing MBA with people who were much younger than me, who had come from a background of very hardcore corporate experience, looking forward to, and they had all prepared through a lot of cutthroat competition for CAT, and they knew everything, you know. This B school is known for X, that B school is known for Y, this is the subject you're supposed to take, that's the company you should target. I had none of it. I had no clue. In fact, they all seemed so much younger to me that at some level, at first, I couldn't even relate. But once the session began, um, there were a few subjects which I had already learned during my civils preparation. And I found that I already knew a lot of it and I had good perspectives to offer. And the preparation of civil services had already made me a person who could articulate in a structured manner. You have to do it. When you go through that exam process, you tend to become structured in your thoughts, in the way you express yourself, in the way you write something. So whenever I shared something in the class, suddenly everyone felt like I was really good. And that full class, which was full of very accomplished people, would bang the desks every time I spoke. If people had their arms up and I put my arm up, everyone else would put their arm down and they would say, okay, Madhyama has something to say, so let's listen. And I know it was very gracious of them and probably undeserved for me, but at that point, I really needed it. When I saw them celebrating me and being appreciative of me in that way, I somehow found all of that lost confidence back. And I felt like, okay, maybe all of that wasn't really a waste of my time. Maybe I have gained something through the experience which I can use even if I'm not exactly in the same field. And I thought that there's still hope, basically. And I found some happiness again. I started enjoying myself a little bit again. And that that kindness of my classmates was something that I was eternally grateful for. And I found some really good friends. So MBA happened this way, and then placements happened. Um, okay, I may be speaking too much, but essentially, even during placements, there's a story because when I decided to join a B school, I had consulted a lot of my friends, and most of my friends had already done their MBA by now. And they said that, you know, with a 4 year career gap, you may not get placed. So, and it is an expensive course. So you do it if you really want to learn or something. But if you think you'll get a job out of it, don't necessarily count on it because you may not find a job that justifies the fees that goes into it. But I had no other options. I was so miserable at my banking job, I had to get out of there. So I took a leap of faith and came here. And they were right. I did not get a lot of shortlists during placements. For for somebody with exact same profile as I had, but no career gap, they were getting tons of shortlists, but not me. So it was tough. But then somehow I did get a few good shortlists, and first day of the placements, I was able to convert one of those shortlists and landed into this investment bank, which I really didn't think I would know much because I didn't feel like I was a finance sort of person. But I got that job, I interned over there, and then I really liked it, and I liked the people, the culture, everything, and I decided to stay there. And it's been 5 years, and I'm doing well, reasonably well at that place. So, long story short, uh, there were a lot of chances that worked out in my favor. There were a lot of people who had my back. There were a lot of cheerleaders who really made me feel uplifted again, and a lot of support from family and friends, which kept me afloat. And in absence of all of this, nothing would have worked out for me. But with the infinite blessings of God and the infinite love of those around me, thankfully things did work out well.
That's really commendable. Yeah. I guess how did you manage to balance out everything together and especially be committed to, finishing your MBA as well as, landing at the short list, I guess replacing the short list with a good offer.
Yeah, I would again say that this was um, more luck than my achievement because because I don't know, something else could have very easily happened. I could have made some mistake at some stage. I may not have received just enough marks to crack the interview or land the shortlist. In fact, yes, there's an interesting perspective I do have to offer here. Like I said, I was quite miserable at the other bank, but I worked over there for about 11 months. And that was during demonetization as well. And I strongly believe that those 11 months of banking experience on my resume helped me get this finance shortlist, which I was able to eventually convert because I had the experience of working during demonetization. So even though I hated it there, but being in a banking environment during demonetization was once in a lifetime opportunity because I saw that chaos and a lifetime event really up close and personal. And then that on my resume immediately made me eligible for a few finance shortlists. So eventually, it was just a step in the broader path of things. But at the time, I really hated it. So I guess it's also important to have faith in God's plan for you and just having the patience, keep praying that things will change and keep working on yourself with some optimism. Trust the people around you who have your back, and if they are pushing, like, I completely credit this pivot in my career to my sister and mother. Had they not pushed me so much, and they really had to push me at every stage of the process, had they not done that, I really don't know what I would have been today, where I would have been today.
Yeah. I guess like, that's really wonderful that you have such a loving family.
Sorry, I think I
I guess
lost you.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was just saying, that was very wonderful. Like, you have such a loving family and, you didn't, like give up. You kept trying.
I
I
lost you
guess like
again,
how have your
Vaishali.
personal and professional setbacks and success influenced your overall perspective on career and life balance, especially since you're a mother and you also work and, you have a long distance marriage?
Yes, so that ties very well with what we were discussing earlier with regards to family support, and I think I'll need to elaborate on it a little bit more. But civil services journey is a very solitary journey for a lot of people. Unfortunately, it takes time, it takes money, and it's a very discouraging process if you don't have the right support system. Thankfully, I was extremely fortunate because I had the most supportive parents who were with me every step of the way. No matter how many times I failed, they always had my back, and they always said that we're proud of you no matter what. And and then not just them, but even the broader family, like my brother would sit with me and help me memorize a few things, revise a few things that I had prepared notes on. My sister would constantly be there asking me to not be overly stressed. My aunts and uncles would always be around me to make sure that I was doing okay. The mains exam usually happened during winters at that time, and we were in Delhi, and it was really, really cold in Delhi. But my nani would, come down from her house to our house every morning before my exam just to wish me, bless me. In that biting cold, she would walk down, I would say maybe a kilometer's distance, just to bless me before I left for the exam. And she would be very interested in how I was preparing and if I was doing okay. And even after all that, when I did not really make it, nobody ever said something negative. They were always really upbeat. They always propped me up. And if not for them, I would have really, really faltered. I would have felt like I made a huge blunder and I made a big mistake and I let everyone down. So they never let me go through that. Um, and then even after all this, when I pivoted, I transitioned, and I had my doubts, everyone kept on encouraging me that it's okay. Even if you don't get a lot of shortlists, you just need one shortlist that you need to convert, and that's more than enough. So even there, things were very supportive. Um, And then I got married. Like eventually, I completed my MBA. I joined this new job, which I ended up really liking, and I got married. But my husband is now in the United States pursuing his ambition because he is equally supportive. We both of us are very, very supportive of each other's dreams. So um, I wanted to not let go of this career that I had painstakingly rebuilt. Similarly, he had aspirations of doing something good in the world of robotics and research, which has better opportunities in the United States. So he is pursuing that over there. In the midst of all this, we were blessed with a wonderful baby boy who is the joy of our lives. But unfortunately, we couldn't live together as a family, at least initially, because we also wanted to prepare a good future for him when he grows up. And temporarily, we had to live apart. So, so there are two levels to managing a kid in a long distance marriage. There is the actual physical part of the workload that sometimes is not unevenly distributed because you have to take on a lot more physical responsibility. So stay up at night feeding the baby, but then go to work the next day and go through the motions of managing your work responsibilities while also dealing with the guilt of not really being with your baby in that time, trying to manage expectations at work and at home well. The baby falls sick from time to time, so taking him to the hospital every now and then, making sure he's eating right, going through various milestones, all of that. Um, so that's just the physical part, which has been difficult. But by God's grace, the family support that I alluded to earlier has continued because I am blessed with a really wonderful family. So my sister, my mother-in-law, and parents-in-law, they've been here from time to time, and they've been always around if I needed any help. And thankfully, with the kind of support that I've had, I've not felt the absence of my husband so much in these tasks, even though it has been overwhelming from time to time. But where it gets challenging is the emotional aspect because these milestones that happen in the life of a baby, you want to experience it together. Whether they are happy or sad, whether something good happens or bad, you want to experience those memories, those incidents together as a family. And we've had to compromise a lot on that. So it has been difficult emotionally. And then when you add a very, very demanding job into that mix, it then gets overwhelming at times, especially when you initially return back from the maternity break. It's very challenging. You feel you might not be as good at your job. Other people have taken on some of your core competencies while you were away. You need to create a space for yourself from scratch. Um, and then there's the ever present guilt of missing out on time with your baby. You feel like you're not good enough as a mother, you're not good enough as a human being, maybe because this innocent bundle of joy that just wants to be with you, and you can't give your baby that kind of time and love all the time, and you rely on so many other people around you to have that happen. So that aspect is extremely difficult, and I don't have a good answer for what is the solution to that. But the only thing that I can say is I feel like over the course of some years, what I am as a person overall holistically will have more impact on him and his perception of the world than this time that he might be missing out on. So I try and do something which will help him grow in a world that is better for him. Um, I am not in a job that creates a lot of social impact, but it's a job that I really like. It keeps me happy. It gives me confidence. It gives me the means to do better for him, and it satisfies me at an intellectual level. And I think that makes me a better, well rounded person, a more confident person who can then help him. Uh, find his own ambitions, passions, dreams, and whatnot. I have newfound respect for our mothers who have sacrificed so much to bring us up, and that too in an environment where technology was not so advanced. Because today, any doubts that I have, technology can solve in no time. Today, even though I am in a long distance marriage, I can do a video call every day with my husband. My child knows his Baba by face and interacts with his Baba every day. So, all of these are really good, fortunate incidents because of which me and people like me are able to still thrive. So, really, really fortunate about all of that. Um, and then just coming back into work, it's also important to have a workplace which is very supportive and have a team that you can count on. So I've lucked out on that as well because my team, my manager, my organization has been excellent in every step of the way. They had a very nice, gradual, flexible return to work program. They continue to be very supportive. They understand and empathize with the challenges that I might face in my time management and are very flexible to reschedule things. So, all of these have been things that have made my transition easier. But I really hope and pray that every new mother is able to find such support. And if not, then they're able to seek such support from elsewhere. It may not be there in the immediate family, but maybe their friends step up. Maybe they are able to change their companies so that the other company is better than the previous company. But I know it's not always possible, so I'm eternally thankful to God for my infinite blessings. And I feel like I keep on telling myself that for some reason, despite putting in a lot of effort into my civil services journey and a lot of passion, a lot of long nights, blood, sweat, tears, whatnot, it never happened for me. But here in my plan B, even without putting in a lot of effort, it has continuously happened for me. All the bad luck of phase A has always been good luck in phase B. So I feel like maybe this was God's plan all along. And then I quote Sheryl Sandberg to myself, wherein she said that it's okay if plan A doesn't work, let's, kick the shit out of plan B. So that's what I'm trying to do.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah. Um, yeah, I guess like another question that I had was, in what ways
Sorry,
has
I've lost
mentoring
you again,
others with
Vaishali.
career gaps, with your own experiences, enriched your own like journey and personal growth?
Yeah, so that has been a very good unexpected consequence of some of my experiences because, like I told you, when I started off, everyone I knew and all of my good friends, well wishers, said that, this may not be the best thing for you. It may not be the right path for you. So essentially, when I came into a B school, I didn't know of anybody else who had a career gap of 4 years and still done well professionally, gotten good placements. Nobody. I had nobody to look up to. Somehow I was lucky enough that I did not have to suffer through that fate. And before I realized it, without trying to consciously do it, a lot of people who had similar career gaps, mostly due to civil services, but at times even due to other reasons, somehow got to know of me. Not just within IIM Kozhikode, but even among the other B schools, somehow got to know of me and got in touch, whether either through LinkedIn or somehow they got my number and they connected over WhatsApp. And they all reached out to ask me how I justified my gap and what I did. And and in reality, I had not justified my gap. I said that I may have a gap on my resume, but I've learned more than I could have ever learned in any job. I've worked harder than I would have worked at any job, and I've seen failure, which has taught me um a lot of resilience. It has taught me how to be calm when things are not working out, how to be optimistic when you're down, how to know that if you keep your cool, you can still come up. It has made me a much stronger, tougher person. It has made me very optimistic. It has given me perspective to see beyond immediate future and have a look at the larger picture, the bigger picture. So all of these are huge strengths which I think come over time, but I've had a crash course on a lot of these human traits, which I think are huge strengths. So my answer was along these lines, which worked in my favor, and I repeated the same thing to a lot of people who got in touch with me. Um, and that had two things. One, they had somebody who had done well despite the gap. So it gave them some hope, which I think made them happy. And hope is a huge thing. Like they say in Shawshank Redemption, hope is a good thing and good things never die. So that hope was really something in itself. And the other thing it did was it gave them a perspective to not treat their gap as a failure, to treat it as an achievement. And in reality, even I felt like a failure when I was saying all these things and I was trying to justify myself. But I think I did it in a way that it didn't come across as me play acting, but it came across as genuine. And I realized when I was speaking that I really felt and believed in those things. So it was genuine, but it wasn't something that I had realized until that point. So so with the combination of these two things, suddenly I had people who were reaching out to me out of nowhere and then sharing great news with me that, I cracked IIM Ahmedabad, I cracked IIM Lucknow, I cracked IIM Bangalore, and then they ended up doing really good things professionally in their career. And I'm sure that listening about their stories had then encouraged a few others to get in touch with them and similarly get inspired. So it was just a wonderful turn of events that happened, but that was quite something. And then the reverse also happened because people who were doing their MBA, but they wanted to pursue civils, also reached out to me to get my perspective. And I remember a really cool example where somebody from IMK had reached out, and we had a small chat about it. And last year he became an IAS officer after completing his MBA. So IMK alumni, and I had messaged him just like that, that I heard that you made the list. So many congratulations, this, that. I didn't remember we had had a conversation in the past. And he said that your words helped me decide and do something, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure he was just being really generous and kind, but the reverse has also happened. So all of these tend to make you again feel like those years and all of those tears were not a complete waste of time. It has given some gift in some form and it has helped people who I got to know by chance in some small shape or form. So that has been an interesting turn of events.
Definitely. Networking is such a crucial skill and nowadays, especially for people going into like, tech, business, and especially like medical and research. Because in
Yeah.
every industry, you need to know someone who's either has more skills than you and learn from them and, not view them as competition or like some sort of like, I don't know, this bubble that people create amongst themselves. Um, and yeah, your story was very inspiring. Yeah, thank you for being here today. And yeah, let's keep in touch.
For sure. Thank you so much for having me, and I am equally inspired by the kind of effort and refinement that you have put into your work and the resilience with which you approach everything, the passion with which you're doing so many things simultaneously, and that too at such a young age. I am astounded. So more power to you, and I can't wait to see what all great things you'll do in your future. So all the very best. And yes, let's do stay in touch.
Thank you.